Okay, Bonnie Gang, everyone. Professor Amin Rahh, Professor Emeritus, California State University of Long Beach, um, former city councilman for the city of Compton, former Compton College Board of Trustee, and former Compton Unified School District Board Trustee, longtime activist and cultural nationalist and revolutionary from the 60s. We want to welcome you to the Conscious Corner, along with Brother Rashaki Maskani, longtime activist himself, as well, who's really the producer of this show, along with the Community Education Network that comes on tomorrow, which he will tell you about his guest. He comes on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I'm here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We want to welcome you to Zoom in because we discuss critical issues facing Black people and facing and questioning the issues that we have to deal with as a people in struggle. I want to welcome our guest, Dr. Rosemarie Allen, who will be with us. I don't know how long she can be with us. She's in Denver. It's cold out there, and she's not feeling that well, but she said she had come on. I want to thank her. Dr. Allen is over a major nonprofit in Denver, very strong in the Denver community, well known, well loved, and well appreciated. She's a professor, and at the same time, she operates an educational program nationwide recognized, even been invited to the White House and major other professional groups to present her statistics and data on uh, suspensions and of African Americans, a disproportionate amount of African Americans that are suspended, and finding restorative justice concepts into the education system. Our other guest is a distinguished author and longtime activist from the early 70s, Brother Dr. Robert Johnson, author of The History of Compton and many other articles, and he has a strong connection with the Historical Society of Compton, where they work together to document and interview people that have contributed to the growth and development of Compton. Robert is a good friend and a good colleague in struggle. He's very familiar with many people in the Panther Party. Matter of fact, he was part of the Compton and Long Beach Black Panther Party, and we want to welcome him and one of the, along with Dr. Allen, one of the strong members of the BSU during during the mid 70s, and we want to welcome both of them. Before we get started, uh, we want to say this is Black History Month. We want to give praise and thanks to our brother, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, for starting Negro History Week, February 26th in 1926, and a brother that was he wrote the book Miseducation of the Negro, as well as put out a magazine called the Association for the Study of Negro Life, and he's an institution. And we give praise and thanks to the people that took that Negro Week in the 60s after the Black Culture Revolution and turned it into a month. And not only did they develop a month for Black people with Black history, but everyone else started getting months. Now, every time you look around, somebody have a month. Now, after February, March is Women's Month. Then you got Gay Month. Then you got Elderly Month, because once we start something, people fall in line. They borrow our slogans in our both civil rights and Black culture movement. They borrow, and then, they just, I mean, when we liberate ourselves, other people get liberated. I remember Kwame Ture he was at a hotel, that's from Stokely Carmichael. He said, a white person said, "Oh, you you're a revolutionary. You changed things. And he said, I changed it for you. You wouldn't be able to wear your long hair if it wasn't for me. I don't know if you remember that, Rose. He was at Cal State Long Beach when he said that. And so those were things like that. And that's when Students for a Democratic Society and all of them were on campuses expressing their opposition to the war. But anyway, we're going to get started. As I said last week, I just wanted to give a quick narrative. First of all, this is people sometimes forget that they call this out. They say what's wrong with a lot of young people is they don't know their history, and then they're not teaching us their history. And when I was coming up, they didn't teach us our history. It's important for us to teach our history to each other because we have to tell the story. And the purpose of this month's program was to tell the story of Black liberation movement and the Black civil rights movement in Long Beach and on the campus of Cal State University of Long Beach. Not something that we refer to, but actually the people that made that history, the roles they played. Why did they become activists? And why did they get in organizations? And then, it was a struggle. And as I told you last week, they put their lives on the line, knowingly or unknowingly. In the 60s, they shot and killed people at Kent State, Jackson State. And then in other areas, they were shooting students who demonstrated. I'm not talking about with rubber bullets, right? They didn't even have tasers then. So we putting our lives on the line because we didn't know how vicious and how militarism this society is with regards to staying racist, staying capitalist, and staying sexist, and staying white supremacist. And so that's very important for us to realize that we're up against a very serious person, but for the young people that come behind us to know that things weren't just the way it is with them right now, that we struggle for every inch of freedom that they have, every inch of opportunity that they have, regardless of that. Many of their parents don't tell them that. Maybe their parents weren't activists. But many of our parents who came out the South, who came up in the wretched and aspects of the slavery and post-slavery and Reconstruction and all of those type of stuff, the segregation, discrimination, all the things when you had to get on the back of the bus and get up out your seat and stand, even if you're on the back of the bus sitting. If it was full, you had to get up and let white people sit down. Those were laws. Those were laws that you couldn't drink from the same fountain or use the same restroom as white people. Those weren't just white people doing this at their house. This was going on. So, but our parents never discussed it for some reason. Many parents didn't. Maybe some did, but most parents didn't. And so we grew up and we learned on our own. All we knew was just to respect Whitey and leave him alone because he was dangerous. And we accepted the oppression and the discrimination, that was just natural until, and so many of the kids and young people in not just in Long Beach and on Cal State University, Long Beach, many of them students come to the college and they think there was always a Black Studies program. They think there was always an ELP program. They think there was always a financial aid program that gave them access. They thought it was always an upward bound program. They thought that BSUs were always here and that they were social groups, not activist groups, because that's what they then turned into now, hip hop groups and things of this nature. And so we have to sort of like, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong when you give your points of view, uh, let people know. Sit down with our children. Um, the best way to discuss history is with your family. The best because they believe your mothers and fathers. It's mothers and fathers who first take you to church. That's why you believe in God, because if your mom and daddy do, why not you? I mean, that's the way that go. You don't think your mom and daddy believe in something that ain't real. And so that's the same thing with us trying to get a better perspective of things. So we're going to start, and we're going to welcome Brother Thabiti and Kuumba and Brother Mshinda. But we're going to go around. First of all, and Brother Matt Moore. But Dr. Allen, tell us why you became an activist. What made you join the BSU? Because let me tell you why. When we first started, I think Robert was around. I know he got the stories. If he didn't, Dr. Johnson. When we first started the BSU in the 60s, students couldn't go home and tell their parents they was in it. And the sisters and brothers who had naturals would get haircuts or get their hair back straightened before they go home for the weekend. You understand? They're black on campus and black away from home when they was at college, especially four-year school. But community colleges was even worse. But anyway, you didn't go home until and many parents discouraged their kids from being activists. I ain't paying my money for you to go out there and be with them people. No, no, I want you to, I mean, it was different. It was different. But anyway, Dr. Allen, tell us about why you decided to be an activist from that standpoint.
Well, I think you hit it on the head because I certainly wasn't encouraged to be one at home. Although my dad, he always talked about who I am and instilled in me the pride of being Black. I am the first person to go in my entire family, cousins, uncles, aunties, siblings to go to college. So that was a really, really big deal. And they wanted to make sure I was successful. And
Mhm,
getting caught up in Black studies made them worry a little bit. But
mhm,
for me, that's where I went to find family.
mhm,
Cheka Abubakari came to my high school, and through that EOP program, I think through UCLA at the time, helped me and my other Black friends apply to different colleges. I actually ended up at Chico State first, did not fit in. I was homesick. I just couldn't stand being away from family. So I got so sick, I lost 20 pounds, so made me all of about 80 pounds back then. And my dad said, okay, you come home. And when I came home that next semester, so they didn't want me to miss a semester, I was at Cal State Long Beach. My cousin Felton Williams, who was a instructor there, got me in,
mhm,
but I was still lost. You
mhm,
know, all my friends and family, they weren't in school, they were working, and I was lost. And Beats and Solo directed me to you, Ra,
mhm,
and
mhm,
connected us and said, you need to get involved. And from that point on, I got involved. And like I said, Bobby, Danifu, Irvin Hakim, Rashida, that whole group were there. I met them in the BSU office way back when and began to learn more about who I was. And it was just home that became my community. So it started with community within CSULB, and then it expanded to activism. I was taught through Bobby Johnson, through Danifu Kareem, through Urban Hakim, that it was more than just us.
mhm,
So with that, changed my major to Black Studies.
mhm,
And the rest was history. But what was happening at the time, Bobby, I'm sure you're going to speak more about this, is really keeping the Black Panther movement together, being introduced to Elaine Brown and all of the meetings through your classes, through Sherry White's classes, through even Dr. Robinson, I say even Dr. Robinson's classes, just really learning more about who I am, what's happening in our community, having not been exposed to that. Because you're Black doesn't mean you know the issues that Black people face.
Okay.
Mean that you know the history. Dr. Arnett Hartfield was really, really good in Black Man in the Law, that class, and
Mm,
just teaching that overall history that we are still dealing with today.
mm,
When I think about what I learned way back then in 1977 in my Black Man and the Law class about the 14th Amendment, the Dred Scott decision and all of that, it
mm,
helped prepare me to fight against what's happening with birthrights with this new
mm,
administration,
mm,
because that whole 14th Amendment was for Black folks. And
mm,
they may be targeting right now Hispanics, but don't think we're not next, because that's
mm.
the only amendment that made us citizens. They do
Yeah.
away with that, then we're no longer citizens either. But you didn't ask me for all that, but I'm just saying that that's how it set the tone for
Okay.
me to be a 17-year-old activist and
Uh-huh.
now a 66-year-old activist.
All right. Well, and first of all, you were not only just an activist, you led and you taught and you recruited other people. I saw you on campus. You would
Yeah.
challenge people to come to the meetings and to get actively involved. It wasn't like you were just, just was just about me getting involved. You wanted the people involved, and that was the beautiful thing about your spirit. And you were very successful in getting a lot of your friends, people that you met he come to the BSU offices and getting all that. But Dr. Johnson, why did you get active? How did you become an
I just
activist?
like, just
Did
like how you
you
promote me, man. I'm just a researcher and an author. Okay, haven't got the doctor yet, but my
you're a street doctor, a brother activist doctor. You heal a lot of people. Go ahead.
well, I was listening to what you were saying in the beginning and about our families in particular. My maternal grandfather was a member of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters.
Mm,
So you remember back in the day, you walk into just about any black person's house and you would see like there'd be like white Jesus, and then there'd be like John Kennedy, maybe Robert Kennedy, and then there'd be Martin Luther King.
yeah.
At my grandparents' house, there was A. Philip Randolph. Well, there
Mm,
was still white Jesus, okay, but right next to white Jesus was A. Philip Randolph and
mm,
the A. Philip Randolph Foundation. So they were involved with that. And what had happened was that my grandparents, because of their activities in the Union, um, they joined the Communist Party in the 1930s. For those of us who looked at that portion of history, the Scots, the Scottsboro Boys,
mm,
was like a catalyst for a lot of people, and
mm,
people saw that the only people who were supporting them was the NAACP and the Communist Party. Wasn't the
mm,
Republicans, wasn't the Democrats.
mm,
For all the rhetoric, those were the two groups. So a lot of black people, including a lot of leading intellectuals, joined the Communist Party behind that. And part of that group happened to be my grandparents.
mm,
So they were also involved with the NAACP and other organizations. So, I always saw that coming up. Um, of course, my grandparents came up here from New Orleans,
mm,
and for some reason, I think there's a certain type of spirit that just comes out of there because you'd be surprised, especially in Southern California, how many people who became very active were part of that second migration, especially coming out of places like Louisiana and Texas. A lot of people from Arkansas, but Louisiana, I just keep running into people, and especially in the Black Panther Party, you saw a lot of people from Louisiana and Texas. But so that was always a vein in my family. My
mm,
on my paternal side, my other grandfather was a railroad man also.
mm,
So always involved with workers' rights. Um, my mom was president, and while she was in Congress, she was president of the League of Women Voters. So she was active. Uh,
mm,
and at that time, a lot of people were active in the NAACP, which at that time was no joke because They were killing folks just for registering to vote. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess with that background, it wasn't like anybody told me anything. It was more like, you have your regular education, and we all came up during that time when, it was like, here are the good guys and here are the bad guys. They gave us a real simple idea about World War II. It's like the Germans were the bad guys, and we didn't kill prisoners and people who, if you put your hands up, you didn't shoot them, right? That's all the stuff that we were taught. Fair play, all that. And then as you grow up and you start seeing the contradictions, and as you get to become a certain age and you realize a lot of those contradictions are based on race, economics, race. Okay. But just like, somebody told me, what do they call a black doctor? No offense, doctors, but, you know, racist calls them a nigger. It's saying it's across the board. So what? So we're dealing with that double prong, the racism, white supremacy, but also dealing with the issues of capitalism and how they affect our community, how that affects our community, because it doesn't just affect our community economically. I mean, right down to our environment. Environmental decisions are based on how we're gonna make this money. So realizing those contradictions, and then as I was coming up, friends of mine had been killed by the police. Um, you you might remember when Marquita Faust was killed. That was DJ Quick's older sister. I think he must have been a baby when that happened, because this was December 1972. She was killed by the sheriff. She's 13 years old. That, you know, this was a that family was a friend of mine. I knew her older brothers. Her brothers were friends of mine. We went to school together. That was the first defense committee that I joined. I came in and, because these brothers had gone door to door and to let everybody know what was going on. And so we got there because the police had actually arrested their mother and charged her with murder after they killed her daughter. So we were trying to figure out what we needed to do to get her out of jail. And that's when I realized I had to do something a little more. Beforehand, some friends of mine and I, we've been involved with, as community workers, with the breakfast program over on Stocker and then over on Hickory. But when that happened, when Marquita got killed, there was no justifying it. And the only group that came out that made sense to me at that time was the Black Panther Party. Because I had to reconcile the fact that here was this white sheriff's brutalizing, my friend's mother, but it was the black cop that shot her. So at that time, with my young teenage self, I was trying to make this all make sense. Okay. And so, like I said, I don't know if you knew Little Joe Johnson, but he was a Panther organizer, and that's when we first met. Unfortunately, he just passed away recently, less than a year ago. But good brother. But when I saw the idea of organizing, people coming out, that support, that community support. I mean, that house was full of people. Everybody in the neighborhood came out that night. And it was like, who did it? These people they didn't have they weren't getting paid to do that. The family couldn't do it. I was just trying to go, wow, who are these guys? And And that kind of started taking me. And like I said, just as you're getting older, you're looking at things. You saw the contradictions. At that time, I had relatives who were already had been members of Black Panther Party. So I kind of had an entree into more left politics anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But up until that time, I hadn't been looking for. What did Snoop Dogg say? I just wanted to have fun.
Okay.
But it wasn't fun no more.
All right. Thanks. But you were very strong on the campus with you and Denise at Cal State Long Beach and your activism. Y'all brought Bill Scott. Y'all really was thinking about just galvanizing students. Y'all did more challenging students than asking them to join, challenge them to be activists, and that was very strong. Y'all
One of the things that we wanted to do with originally when I first got there, like I said, this was like around 74. The idea was to rebuild the network that had been in place beforehand, where all the BSUs under the Student Alliance banner had been in an umbrella group, and they all coordinated their activities together. So that was the first thought. That was the first idea. But Doug Robinson offered to help us to bring people to. I see Rosemary smiles, and I mentioned Doug Robinson. Doug was pretty cool with us, but he's the one who said, "Hey, maybe you might want to do a conference. Maybe you might want to do, bring people like Gil Scott Heron and other people to campus." And he really helped facilitate that.
Okay. All right. Brother Ijau, is he still here? Brother Ijau?
Yes, sir, brother.
Yeah. You were president of BSU on campus at Cal State Long Beach and president of a fraternity. Why did you become so active in all the groups you were involved in? And you're in the group that you're involved in right now, helping young men or something. I forget the name of it, but go ahead.
It's called Black Men Build, brother. Black Men Build. Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Asante Sana, Professor Rahh. Your question again was why?
What made you get involved?
Well, brother, I came from Oakland, brother. And coming out of Oakland, my mother was very active in the community, and seeing her active in the community, she was active in Neighborhood Watch. She was active in the PTA. She was active in a lot of different things, United Women's Colored Organizations and different involvement in the church and a lot of things. And I remember one thing that happened, I'll never forget this. My mother, she came up to my school when I was in high school.
Was this in Oakland?
In Oakland, in high school.
It wasn't Castlemont.
No, I went to Oakland Technical High School,
okay.
Oakland Tech. Oakland Tech High School with Ricky Henderson. Played football with Ricky Henderson. He passed away recently.
Yeah.
He broke the base stealing record. And anyway, but yeah. She came up to the school, and because we didn't have any textbooks in my English class, we had Xerox copies of the textbook, English books. And she came up there and she raised a lot of noise to the principal and to the teacher about why there were no textbooks in the English class. And the teacher said that they would get textbooks for me.
Mm.
And my mother said, no, she don't want just textbooks for me. Make sure there's textbooks for everybody.
Mm.
Everybody have textbooks. And they got textbooks for everybody.
Mm.
And that was something that kind of impacted my life. That was one life-changing moment for me, if you will. And growing up, I saw so many brothers being shot in the back. On television, I saw a brother being shot in the back running by the Oakland police as a teenager on the television. And my mother feared for our lives as teens. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. And I lived right around the corner from the Black Panther headquarters.
Mm.
And when I was come from school, we walk by there and see the Black Panthers having their meetings. And me and my brothers, my siblings, me and my twin, since he's passed away, but we would always ride our bikes to the Black Panther rallies. We would always be at the Black Panther when they was giving away food and clothes and Black Liberation Days. We would ride our bicycles there. So we was always sneaking around to those rallies. My mother didn't want us around there because she feared for our lives. She didn't want us to grow up because she feared that she didn't want to see us dead.
Mm.
But I saw that, and then I saw Black men dying all the time. And then I also noticed on TV there were no Black referees in sports.
Mm.
I didn't never see any Black referees. I didn't see any Black quarterbacks in football. Those kind of things caught my attention.
Mm.
So anyway, I came to college, and the first thing I did was sought out my Black people.
Mm.
I came to a predominantly white institution. The first thing I was doing was looking for Black people.
Mm.
So I was compelled to want to find Black people. And one day I was walking as a freshman through the campus and on my way to the library.
This is Cal State Long Beach?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Cal State Long Beach.
Mm.
And I ran into a brother, as you all know, named Barry Thomas.
Mm.
And he was walking out of the EOP Language Arts building, and he pulled me to the side and introduced himself and said, "Hello, brother. Hey, brother." And that was the beginning of, he let me know that there was a Black Student Union and whatnot. And the rest was history, brother.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of my experience with, he connected me to where my people were.
Okay.
That was within my first week or so on campus.
All right. You tell us about this organization, Building Black Men. What just briefly, what's that about?
Black Men Build is an organization that was organized during the pandemic of brothers. Started with some brothers out of Miami. They wanted to organize Black men of adults of all ages to come together, because a lot of brothers are hurting out there in the community, emotionally, physically, mentally, and especially during the pandemic. And you know, as you mentioned, that I was going through some trauma in my life. I had, I was a victim of a violent crime, and I was recovering. And I was listening. I don't know if you all listen to Urban View. It's a channel on satellite, and that it's a Black channel. And I heard a commercial talking about Black Men Build. And they had hubs in a few cities, but they didn't have one in LA. And so I said, I need to be a part of this. But it's about organizing Black men coming together to make a difference, a positive impact in the Black community. and they were calling brothers. And so I went to the first meeting, and it was about 5 or 6 brothers there, and wanted to start a chapter, a hub in Los Angeles. So I was one of the first brothers. We had to have 9 brothers who were dedicated to starting a chapter or hub in Los Angeles. So I was one of the 9 brothers. And we have men's circles first Saturday of the month, and where men could talk in a judgment-free zone about what we go through in life that we may not feel comfortable about talking to other people. What our hurts are, what we're feeling, what our pains are, and have what we're going through in our struggles. And that was it was a therapy for me to be able to talk about what I've been going through emotionally. And younger brothers would be able to come in and talk to older brothers coming out of the penitentiary, even some brothers who were homeless could come in to the circle. And then we would find resources for them. And just that was the beginning of it, of Black Men Build in that year of 2020. And we have some values that we stand upon. And I could get more into detail about it.
Well, you know, we had you on before, and we'll bring y'all back for some update.
Yes, sir.
Dedicate a whole program to that. All right.
Yes, sir. And then once again, you also mentioned about my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I found myself looking around on campus, and it wasn't about the Greek lettered organizations. They would run around, you know, stepping and this and this and that. And I believe that, yeah, all of that was cool. But the bottom line is, I was wondering why wasn't, you know, those fraternities and sororities, why weren't they connected to the Black Student Union? I couldn't understand that. But there was a couple of them who were a part of the Black Student Union. So I thought that was cool. So I was talking to some of them brothers, and some of them brothers were Omegas. And, you know, that was one of the things that inspired me. And, you know, in the past, I guess there have been maybe some friction between some of the fraternities, you know, not being a part of the Black Student Union, which I can't understand that, because, you know, we believe that the Black Student Union, and that was one of my values of the organization, that the Black Student Union is the umbrella organization of all of the organization. It didn't matter if you was a Black engineer, or if you was an Omega, or you was an Alpha or a Sigma, you were a Black student first. So that became we valued that as the umbrella of all the organizations. All you fall into that. No matter, when you first get to the campus, you're a Black student. So that was where I found myself supporting Omega Psi Phi, because we had some important cardinal principles. You're a man first. Scholarship is knowledge of yourself. Perseverance, you got to persevere to get through college. You got to keep fighting to get through college. And then uplift, you got to always be about uplifting and lifting up your people. So that's what moved me to supporting Omega Psi Phi. And then, you know, they said it was the hardest one. So it's like, well, nothing's too hard. It's all state of mind. So if you can press through it, then hey, life is hard. From the cradle to the grave, life is hard. It's all a state of mind. You can get through it. And, you know, that ascended me maybe to leadership. And so, hey, that's just in a nutshell, Professor.
Okay. All right, yeah, but like they say, from the womb to the tomb.
Yeah.
This struggle. Dr. Allen, could you just tell us what you're doing and what your project is? And then I'm going to go back to Bobby Johnson. Then I'm going to go to Thabiti and let them I say why he was an activist. Yeah, good. You on mute. You on mute.
Yeah, so we have a nonprofit, the Institute for Racial Equity and Excellence, and we have 5 pillars. One is our racial equity and social justice, where we go
Just a minute.
all.
You tell them where you at and where
Oh,
your
I'm sorry, I'm in
organization.
Colorado. IB is actually international, and we go all over the country, all over the globe, teaching especially educators how to create anti-racist, anti-bias classrooms. We work with organizations. We've worked with 47 departments of education here in the States. We are in Denmark. We've worked in Australia and Puerto Rico and some of the islands. We also work with corporations. We have trained the lots of national organizations. We have provided training for law enforcement, for PBS, Public Broadcasting System, and various other organizations and school districts. We also have early childhood mental health. People don't know that children are kicked out of school beginning at 8 months old. Black children, especially Black boys. Black boys are the most suspended demographic in all of America. So we're trying to break that cradle to prison pipeline. And the largest growing rate of suicide in our country are Black boys between the ages of 5 and 12, increasing. So we're doing a lot of work with mental health with that. We have licensing. We license and monitor child care facilities using a model called culturally responsive community-based licensing. And the reason that we do that is because most of our Black child care centers that are Black owned were being shut down by the state. So we contract with the state to build the bridge to hire people from the community who speak the language of the community and understand the culture of the community. And then we have this intersection with race and ability. So we know, and you all know when we were in school that special ed was used to resegregate. And now we can't get the services that we need. So we talk about and train about the intersection between race and ability. And the newest thing I'm doing, which Mr. Omar Montgomery got me into, I am the new president of the Douglas County NAACP. So that is going to keep my behind busy. And also I'm a full professor at the local university in the School of Education.
And you have a broadcast show, a podcast.
Yeah. I'm the race and equity expert for our local news station, 9 News. So every week, just talking about things that affect our people, other people of color, and those who have been historically marginalized.
All right, good. Thanks again, Dr. Allen.
Yeah.
Brother Thabiti,
Congratulations, sister.
Brother Thabiti, you there? Yeah.
I'm here.
How did you get into activism, and tell us about what you're doing now? I know you work for BET, and I know that you went on and started your own company and projects and things of this nature. But what made you really get active? Because when you was at Cal State, there was a lot of activism going on, demonstrations everywhere. So go ahead.
I think when I came, I kind of, just gotten started in studying Black history, on a minor level. And I think the introduction through Black studies is what really got me involved. And between Black studies and I think the first Black Consciousness Conference that I went to was the real impetus or motivation. And, like a lot of us, as Ijau mentioned, we were connected through barriers, someone else through ELP, from an advisement and mentorship standpoint as newbies on campus, and kind of directed in a sense to get involved. So between those 3 things, I think already having an inclination to want to be involved, exposure to the activism, learned through Black studies and the history of that activism. And then, like I said, the first Black Consciousness Conference. And I think that was in 79. And I know Fareed was on last week talking about that. And I know you had mentioned him. I think it was you that had mentioned him was that you mentioned him introducing Farrakhan?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I remember that distinctly as well. And I remember Fareed getting up and speaking and on that stage. And so that also left, it kind of also left a mark in my mind as to, students on this campus are, about something, about consciousness. And so I just kind of from there, I just think I started inquiring more about what folks were doing. And because I was, taking Black studies, well, really only I think they had that first class that one year, just 110, but I learned so much in that class that, I kind of start writing a newsletter or writing articles. And the organization was talking about having a newsletter. So I think I wrote an article about the importance of Black studies and why students, because, a lot of students had, there's a lot of apathy around the issue of Black studies. A lot of people have been advised by their parents, don't get involved in that Black stuff. We've all heard that. And so I just felt the need to stress to, my fellow students what was critical about having that as a part of your curriculum. And that kind of got me involved as well. And from there, I just guess, I don't remember the specifics. Yeah, it may have been a couple of, things going on campus in front of the bookstore, some activities, some rallies, but some other small things that were going on that may have also contributed to it. And then I don't remember what, exactly when I went to my first BSU meeting and started getting, more directly involved, but it was probably around that same time. And then that following year is when I really got involved after my first year. So that would have been 1979. I'm sorry, 1980, 81. Yeah, 1980, 81, because the first year was 79, 80. So yeah.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
We were babies.
Well, what are you doing
I
now?
know, right?
What are you doing now?
Well, so kind of my history since, leaving Long Beach was in addition to going to school, continuing school at USC and grad school, but a lot of people know my history of working for BET, first working in the cable industry and then working with BET specifically and moving to DC. And spending 16 years there, well, spending 8 years at BET, but spending 16 years in DC, trying to do what could be done, and Barry will tell you the history behind how I got to BET and how, inviting Bob Johnson to the Black Media Conference, which he alluded to last week, was kind of the impetus for that as well. Bob never came, but his executive vice president, a brother by the name of Ed Maddox, rest in peace, passed on some years ago, came. And that was kind of my introduction. And it's kind of an interesting, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story, but it's kind of an interesting set of events that occurred that kind of led to that. And, in addition to being involved heavily in the BSU, as a broadcast journalism major, I was doing a project, and one of the projects we had to do for the radio station was, kind of a documentary style story about something. And so I chose the cable industry. Now, all of this is orchestrated, right? I mean, it's an intentional reason why I selected this. But I was in cable, remember, this is 1982, 83, around that time. So cable industry was very, very new, Most people had not heard of BET. It had actually been created in 1980. So anyway, I did this story on the cable industry and where the cable industry was going and so forth. And then, after reading this article about BET, and then, and that's kind of where I really learned and got an interest in that industry. So that kind of led me to BET, in that I started with the local cable company there and got some experience in cable television while I was going to grad school, and ended up writing I had a professor, it's a funny story. I had a professor who at Annenberg School for Communication at USC, who was on a board of the School of Communications at the University of Texas at Austin. And Bob Johnson just happened to be on that same board with him. And so, I was arranged to do a directed research project with this professor. And, I decided to do, in a kind of a research paper on the cable industry as relates to Black entertainment and BET specifically. And the professor ended up, mentioning it to Bob at a board meeting and kind of encouraging me to approach him, not knowing that that was my plan all along, right? So it just worked out the way that the professor actually ended up knowing him. And Barry will tell the story because he went out with me the first time I went out there to connect with Bob. Anyway, so long story short, I ended up getting to meet him and having had experience in the cable industry, and that's how I got to BET. And Maulana also would tell you, I brought Maulana there several times. Because a lot of people had not been exposed to Kwanzaa, for example, and he wasn't really getting a national in the main media, kind of the exposure for it. And so anyway, so we did some things to make sure he got on air there. We did the Unity in the Community tour I created there, the Black College Essay Awards I created there. So it was basically a space for me to continue the work that I had been inspired by at Long Beach State. So all of us are inspired in that way, I think, and that kind of our formative years made us who we are. And while I was in the process of, I wasn't leaving BET, but I was contemplating my next move. And I kind of decided that I wanted to do something that impacted children and take my experience in media and entertainment and my love for children, and I think a natural ability to teach and combine those three things. And that's what made me end up doing the kids animated movie called Tell Me Who I Am. That we always had intended as a long-term series, and we still haven't given up on. We're working on some things now, but it was critically acclaimed, and it's still a cult classic. We have parents who are still talking about it, who were kids at the time when it was made, showing it to their kids. That's the longevity it has had as one episode. And so in the meantime, as the industry changed from an analog industry to a digital industry, opportunities became available to level the playing field in media and entertainment via the internet, whereas before you needed the major corporations for distribution. And so now you have an opportunity through streaming technology, obviously, and other technology that's to come, to have a lower barrier of entry for people who want to develop and distribute content. And so now I've created my own streaming service called kidpositive.tv. That's operational now. There is a subscription fee for it. We're still developing content for it, but it's the only place you can stream Tell Me Who I Am. We did that intentionally for exclusivity as we continue to work on financing for the new episodes. But then also licensed and acquired other content from other developers and content creators and licensed that content to distribute on this streaming service called KidPositive.tv. So that's what I've been doing with regard to that, the whole trajectory from being at Long Beach State to BET to now in terms of my real focus, which is Kid Positive Entertainment. But then also, of course, since BET is continuing to do my own marketing work. So I have an agency where I do a consultancy where I do marketing work for clients. So I've always done that because that's what I did at BET. I kind of did everything. I was on the production side, I was on the marketing side, but more on the business side than the creative side. And so that's kind of what I still do for clients. So I have, like, just to show you again the Long Beach State connection. Some of you know Pamela Ash, Dr. Pamela Ash, who went to Long Beach State, worked at Long Beach State, happened to go to Howard for a PhD while I was out there at BET, and so we kind of connected, as well as Steve Tarver, who also went to Howard for his PhD, was out there at the same. So a lot of people that came to DC at the same time from Long Beach State. And anyway, so she created this product called blackculturalevents.com. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but if you're not, you should be. I know Ijau is. But it's a online calendar and weekly newsletter of Black cultural events throughout Southern California. So everything from theater to jazz festivals, to book signings, to conferences, to art exhibits, and so forth, are published in this digital content. So I'm working with her to kind of help further develop that, do some ad sales for her, and try to expand and scale that platform. So that's like a client. That's kind of some of the work I do. Other clients like restaurants, a lot of different clients that do media and advertising for it. It's just like kind of bread and butter work. So if anybody ever needs any help marketing, I do that. But that's kind of what I've been doing, since then.
Okay, good. And tell Dr. Ash, we'd like to have her on the program.
Absolutely.
So she can get her program about that digital. Right. And tell people all about it. I know Dr. Ash. She took classes from me when she was at Cal State Long Beach, and she became a counselor at Cal State Long Beach for a little while. Her and Lou Preston used to do annual male-female relationship workshops together jointly. But just give her a warm greeting and let her know that she's welcome. And I'll talk to you more about it. And I'll try to contact her too to come on. Brother Matt,
appreciate you, brother.
Matt Moore.
How you doing, Professor Amira? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How did you get to be involved in activities and activism and things of that nature?
I grew up, it's called South Central now, but back in the day we called it East Side. I'm an alumni at Jefferson High, so I grew up off of Central Avenue. So over on 41st and Central, there's a Black Panther Party office that was started by Bunchy Carter. And as a kid, sort of like Brother Ijau, we'd go up on Central Avenue, and we would go in. They had a breakfast program, Black History, Self-Pride. But the Panthers was just, as brothers in the neighborhood that was giving us love and education. And then Carver Junior High was having walkouts. So I remember seeing my brothers, and they would have the, bands on their arm, and they were doing walkouts back in the day. So in my household, Black father, Black mother, everybody Black. Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, Black, church, mailman. And it was just natural. So, and then, my brothers were always dropping knowledge, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. So when I got to Long Beach State, I think it was shortly before Brother Ijau and I hooked up. But I remember when I got there, I had, two sets of roommates. They all pledged Kappas. And I was thinking about pledging Q Dog just to piss them off, But then I heard about the BSU. And it was just a natural marriage. I decided I didn't want to be a Greek and pledged. I joined BSU, and Brother Ijau and I don't know if he remembered, we had lunch with Brother Irving Hakeem shortly before he was murdered, where he was passing the baton to Brother Ijau and was telling us about politics and things that were going on there at Long Beach. So I got involved with the Black Student Union, Brother Thabiti, Brother Barry Thomas, Gaidi, Sister Aziza, Ijau, and we became Jamaat too. And the time I was there, of course, I was knew Ron Settles and got to know him the last couple of years of his life. But it was just a natural thing. And my mother told me that she saw Malcolm up on Central Avenue, when he came to visit. So it's in my household. I saw, I grew up with the magazines of Emmett Till's murder. So I grew up in a house where strong Black men, 4 brothers, and like I said, the community. But when I got to Long Beach State, it was a natural thing. BSU, Jamaat too. Everything from seeing Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, Queen Mother Moore, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Minister Harold X. I know we used to have those meetings outside of campus, but it was just a natural thing. I couldn't think of anything else to do but to join the BSU and become active.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, brother. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sister Mashariki, you there? You're on your iPhone. Can you unmute Mashariki?
Professor Rahh, while you waiting on her, Matthew mentioned Jama too. That was a term right quick that meant second family. That another friend of mine had used at El Camino College, and we adopted that name, Jama, meaning family, and two, second family, and we still use that today. As all of those who are part of the Black Student Union, we were considered as a second family. So if you were part of the BSU, you're the second family. So we're Jama too, and we still use that today as a second family.
All right. And thanks for that, because I'm gonna come back to that when I sum things up. Hey, Mashariki, can you unmute? Can you unmute? On your phone? Can you? No, you're still on mute. Okay. When you unmute, let me know.
Hey, Professor Rahh.
Yeah.
Barry's here. He wanted to say something.
All right. Go ahead, Barry. We can't hear him.
Yeah. Start again.
Can you hear me?
They can hear you now.
Can everybody hear Barry?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead then, Barry.
I just wanted to say, man, I'm so appreciative of you, Professor Rahh, for putting this together and to talk about the history of when we met and how that history has affected and evolved all of our lives. And as Ijau was saying, Jama too is real, and it stays with us well beyond our college years. And I can tell you things and how brothers hold each other's back and the sisters hold each other's back when we need it and need help. I don't know really what would have happened with me or my mom if it wasn't for the brothers and sisters of Jama too. That's just real talk. I am so appreciative of it, and I'm appreciative of you, Professor Rahh, and Freddie Jett, and Don Duran, and and Alan, Michio, all those people. And I said this to you before, Professor Rahh, for pouring all of those particular knowledge things to me as a freshman. And I often wonder why y'all did that. But as Freddie said, we knew you would do the right thing with it and stand up and do for others. And I've dedicated my life to that. And it wasn't so much about Long Beach State as it was those African-American folks with inside of Long Beach State, the Black Studies Department in the BSU, the life changes for a whole lot of people, brother.
Much you kind. Yeah, see, we believe that you win the people over with service. And y'all did a great job providing services. You not just was activists, you encourage people to go to college. You develop support systems, helping people with the teachers, telling them what teachers to take and what teachers that was racist and what teachers that help you, and you guided people as you was going through college. You was helping others get through. The main thing is to keep them in school till they mature enough to realize that they could finish. Because the average student was taking 6 to 8 years to get a 4-year degree because they put so many requirements on them, for like writing exam and things of this nature, because Black people start graduating. And so things change immensely from that standpoint. So what the point is that the whole purpose of Black Student Union, and then I'm gonna get to Brother Kuumba and Mashariki, and then Brother Ernest and Mshinda to tell us that story. Teachers have a union. The administrators have a union. The custodians have a union. I mean, the support staff. Like A. Philip Randolph, as they were saying, it's a sleeping porters. Unionization is to help advocate for students. And so the BSU, when it first was founded, that's what we did. We went and said, you got to make equity in financial aid access. You got to make equity in admissions to school. You got to get better support systems. And we forced that school to give up those resources. Mostly white kids had all access to support systems. But it was the BSU, that's why it was called BSU, Black Student Union. It was a union representing Black students. And what's so beautiful about it, well, we never had dues, and you didn't have to fill out no application. We just claimed every Black student, whether they were there, knew it or not, that they were members. They were either active or inactive, but they were members, and they showed up to demonstrations. Some that never went to meetings, but they were there for the support, for justice, for the rest of the brothers and sisters. When we called for boycott, when we did fundraisers at the Sarabian's house for dancing, and bake sales, as Dr. Allen was talking about, to raise funds. And then as Brother Dr. Johnson was saying, Arthur Johnson, Robert Johnson was saying, standing in front of the bookstore, getting, just educating people, because everybody was out there looking at each other right in front of the bookstore, all right there, right around that corner. And you would find people, and then we'd try to educate them. So that whole unionization was very important from that standpoint.
Let me say this, Professor Rahh. We talked the other day, and I was telling you that when I was like we were in the Upward Bound program before I got to Long Beach State. So in 1970, we came up to Cal State Long Beach through the Upward Bound program. They were taking us to different campuses. And we were kids. Matter of fact, I think it was in the 9th grade or something. And as soon as we got on campus, it was like the first thing we heard, we're passing the nugget, and it's like, where'd all these little niggas come from? Also, they wouldn't let us in the science building. It was actually a member of the Black Student Union who was giving us the tour. Okay? But it was the Black Student Union that made us potential new students feel like we should even be there. So, that's when the lounge was over there in the business administration building. They had taken us up there. They were the only ones who treated us right. Everybody else, the vibe that we got from Cal State Long Beach was, whoa, this is a negative place, not real cool with the brothers. Except for the Black Student Union.
Yeah, that's that. They had leather umbrella, I think, on the window in that business up there in that lounge area where they took you to their office. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
we were up there until I think we were talking about until they moved us back there on the other side of the camp.
Okay, that's good. Sister Mashariki, are you there? I saw you got into your computer. She stepped away again, I guess. Brother Kuumba.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
it's a lot happening.
All
And
right,
I
Mashariki.
think my
How did
best,
you become active? And what are some of the main memories you have?
just having what seemed like a Black university inside of a white university, the freedom to do the things that we wanted to do. We had an excellent education that a lot of schools, even Black schools, didn't have access to. So that was pretty exciting. Coming from the Bay Area, like Ijau, watching what the Black Panthers that were doing in a positive way and watching what was happening to them on the negative side. Being able to come into Long Beach State, my major was in clothing and textiles, which wasn't many people like that, like me there. But to be creative, it was a nice place to go to. And then having the knowledge, the consciousness conference, it became a big family. And we still are in touch with one another to this day, which I think is a beautiful thing that I'm sure a lot of people didn't have that experience, especially going to school in California.
Mm. Well, that was good, but you were very active. You was
Yeah.
always at the center of things, setting the tone with your singing and things of this nature. And we deeply appreciate all the work that you put in. Then your brother came to Cal State.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
it really became a family affair.
That's
You
true.
know what I
That's
mean?
true.
But we really appreciate you, Mashariki. Brother Kuumba, is you still here?
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
How did you become an activist?
Is that really a trick question?
Oh, wait, let me go back. Mashariki, what are you doing now, and what were you doing, and things of this nature? I know you was working with a lot of different issue programs for a little while. Then you started your own thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, now I'm still singing. I got an opportunity to work with a jazz big band and went back to school for music for a short period, and still doing the same thing. Still trying to, speak up for those that can't speak up for themselves. I work with a group of singers. We do what's called like protest march music, things that were written by what Sweet Honey and the Rock sings. So for all the time that COVID was going on, we were recording and looking for opportunities to be able to share music where people are marching and standing up for different causes. So that's pretty much still going on, working.
Well, you still got that voice. Even when you're talking, it sounds like you're singing. All right. Brother Matt, what are you doing now? We didn't get, what are you doing now, Matt?
I've spent 40 years in probation department. Just retired in 2022. Currently, but while I was working probation, worked with
What were you doing
juveniles.
probation at?
I was doing juvenile hall at Central Juvenile Hall, Sylmar Juvenile Hall, Challenger, Lancaster, Camp Munn.
I was at Los Amigos.
Los Padrinos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, back in the day, yeah. I never worked at Los Padrinos, but I spent 40 years working with the young brothers on the inside, and I learned a lot. Obviously, coming from South Central, we were able to relate, about the projects, and I got relatives that were in the gang life and Compton and different things. But I spent 40 years and just retired a couple of years ago. Currently, my family's dealing with a murder trial. My nephew was murdered in 2021 by some young people that look like me and you. I can't refer to them as brothers because what they did wasn't brotherly. So that's what my family's currently doing. But I'm dealing with some
just criminals. They weren't brothers.
They weren't brothers. No, you don't
brothers don't do that.
No, you don't do that.
People, they was being American.
Yeah, but we're dealing with that, and it's something that he was murdered in 2021. My nephew was a college rugby player, and we're still going to trial. We're trying to get there, so it ain't easy. I can tell you that.
Well, you know the system because you worked in it, so I'm pretty sure they can use your advice, and we wish y'all well in that endeavor. Anything we can do to have y'all on to talk to the public about the case, and if you let us know, okay?
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Kuumba, how you get active?
I don't even know how to answer that question, to be honest. Probably, outside of, this is an awkward conversation to have in front of your father. So, but let's understand that you poured a lot into all of your kids, and that you was an example of what activism looks like. And although in my early years, I probably gave you a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and headache, because I was because although I was seeing you do everything that you do, there was a part of me that was resistant. It wasn't until I got to college, I understood what this movement was about and everything you was pouring into the family. And this, as for me, I'm going to Cal State Long Beach, looking at the institutions that was left by everybody that's on this call, not legacies, but institutions. Legacies are stories about success. Institutions are things that are still practiced. And when I was there, we were still practicing Jama 2, still saying the preamble, still marching on campus, still doing everything to uplift consciousness. Although I came in many cases, many years after the individuals on this call. I had access, Rose, we're both out here in Colorado. And she's the only person that knew me when I had hair that lives out here. So, and I think about the meetings I had with Thabiti, Barry being a mentor even until this day, Ijau, my frat brother. I mean, everything that the people on this call had done at Cal State Long Beach, I was a benefactor of. I worked in EOP. I was a teacher in the Black Studies department as well as EOP. And many of those things happened because everybody on this call laid the groundwork. So my generation is a little different. The people I interact with was a little different, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. And when that group of individuals, when it's time for them to hop on the call, we'll be able to tell how we were able to push the movement forward based on the foundation that was laid by the individuals on this call. And Pops, I just got to say, you know, even till this day when I travel, people still speak your name. People still talk about not just going to your class, whether they were enrolled or not. They would come to your class because you were a teacher, a father, a mentor, and a friend. And many people didn't have that in their own personal life, and they still look up to you today because of what you poured in them. So thank you for this opportunity, and definitely keep up the work.
But your mother, Carrie, was a very strong activist on campus too. You know, when she was
my mom, my grandmother, revolutionary act, was reading the newspaper every single day with the 8th grade education. My mother worked at RTD when they were trying to keep women out of being bus drivers. She was making sure that women was represented in the union, making sure that they were getting the same equal rights. I was surrounded around revolutionaries every single day, but it wasn't until I got to college where I understood my mission to take this knowledge and move forward. So between you, my mom, my grandmother, and many of the people on this call who were mentors is the only reason why I'm able to do the things I'm doing today. So thank you.
And you know, thanks for that, son. But let me just say this, and you know, you be proud of your children, especially what you have accomplished. You and Dr. Allen up there in Colorado, y'all doing fantastic things, you know, and with regard to standing up for the young man who got beat to death. What was his name?
Elijah McClain.
Who?
Elijah McClain.
Elijah McClain case. You were active, and you're president of the current BSU. What are you doing now, Kuumba?
I am president of the Aurora branch of the NAACP, and president and director of equity of community engagement for Cherry Creek School District, and serve on a bunch of committees and all this other stuff. But those are the two things. And most importantly, I'm a family man. Love my family and love the work and that they're doing in the community as well.
Yeah, and you tell Gina we say hello. I'll
She
give
can
her
hear
warm greetings.
you. Wait,
Is there?
All
Hey,
right.
Rob, I'm
All
wondering,
right.
can you kind of give me a tiny bit of grace, if not
Mhm.
now, later? I just want to show a couple of clips from the 1980s Black Consciousness Conference.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Can
already.
start that? Can you share
Yes,
the
yes,
screen? You
yes,
got access?
I do. Here we go. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, that's Richard Fareed, Dr.
That's Richard
Fareed.
Fareed. Here we go. Let me just make it a little bigger.
That's where he was introducing Farrakhan.
We're glad to see you.
Can you hear that okay?
Barely. Turn it up.
Better?
Yeah.
As you've known, those of you that have participated in the programs that we put before you throughout the month of February, we've been trying to heighten and elevate the awareness of the Black man and female of his heritage and his culture and his so richly deserved nature as to who he is and what he can do and his capabilities and such. We're glad to see you people in attendance today, and we hope that you benefit from this program as much as we do and as much as we do in bringing it to you. We have a very profound speaker for you today. Those of you that are in attendance, we're grateful for you to come and take the initiative to find out about self for development of self. As I mentioned, we have a very profound speaker today that we are glad to bring to you. And what we want you to do at the end of the program is stick around and ask questions. Find out what we are doing. We talk about this all the time, but no one seems to come out to the meetings. In terms, we have a large turnout one week and then it will recede and it'll be on the wane and a lot of people won't come back. We have a lot of programs that we can utilize everyone's participation in some form or another. Because all we're doing is building organizations and building our awareness of ourselves on campus here. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring to you Professor Rahh, and he could speak a little bit about our speaker today, because I haven't read all of his books, but those that I've read have greatly enriched my knowledge of self and my dedication to the struggle and my belief in my people. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring to you Professor Rahh.
And just one more, if I may. You all remember Majaliwa.
Yeah. She was president of BSU at that time.
To the conference, we have a schedule that is terribly wonderful. We've got lectures coming in. Dr. Joseph Ben-Yakina will be here this evening. We have a dance, for purposes of fundraising. Hopefully, those of you that are here could help support that. We also have out front the registration, an area where if you feel a donation would be necessary, you can do that also. The conference is free. Tell your friends. And it's going to be a very wonderful experience. And I'm glad that we can all get together and unite for the purposes provided. Thank you.
Brianna.
Rosemarie, president of the Black Studies Student Association, will now speak to you.
Yeah, right.
The seeds of revolution has been planted by those before us, and we now are the fruits of those seeds. The BSSA is the Black Studies Student Association. As many of you know, the Black Studies Department was brought here as a result of the struggle and the bloodshed of many of our brothers and sisters before us. And it is our duty to make sure that the Black Studies Department continue to exist on this campus.
I will put the links in the chat.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a million. That's beautiful. Brother Mshinda, is he still here? I don't see him. But let me just say this too, and we have a very institution here. Brother Ernest McBride, his father was an institution in Long Beach. His name was Ernest McBride. We used to sit at his father's house and listen to his father for inspiration to go out into the community and do things when I was working at Cal State Long Beach. But Ernest McBride, and we're going to have a program, hopefully, to tell his story, because his name should be ringing throughout Long Beach and in the hearts and minds of everyone. So Ernest, did you have any comments you want to make right quick about how you got involved in activism? You're on mute. Ernest, you're on mute. There you go.
I kind of got involved, not by choice, because I can remember my first, beginning in the struggle was my dad. I walked the picket line with him, I think in 1945. I was about 7 years old. And that was my first introduction to, discrimination. And we picketed a school over at Bret Hart, which is not, it's about 2 miles from where I'm living now. And it's kind of ironic because my kids end up going to that particular school, but we fought. My dad, he hated the minstrel show, black minstrel shows, blackface, and we picketed that and made the flyers and everything. So, and then as I got older, I walked several other picket lines with them to protest employment, getting blacks hired for the city of Long Beach and getting blacks on the police department and the fire department. And the thing that as I got older, I began to realize I didn't get introduced to the black student stuff because when I did 2 years at Long Beach City and I graduated from there in 1960 and I had a football scholarship to go to Cal State Long Beach, but then I got drafted in the Army. So when I got out in 63, I called the coach and he said, come on out, scholarship's still good. So, and then there, and I spent most of my time because I was industrial technology major in electronics. So I was at the low end of the campus and I didn't spend much time in the upper campus. But at that time they had, I think it was the Kappa. It was about the only thing they had going for black students. For Alpha, AKA, I guess, was there. And but my time was kind of involved in playing football and learning plays and studying. So after, and then I kind of got my nephew, not my nephew, but my it's my uncle. He went to Cal State Long Beach. He's 10 years below me, Martinville. So that's what was my first introduction to, the Black Student Union. It's through Martin. But then I had the opportunity, I know Mr. Moore mentioned Malcolm X, his mother, seeing Malcolm on Central. And I'd like to know if you can remember what year that was, because when Malcolm came to Long Beach in the early 50s, and he gave a big speech over this restaurant, and that really got everybody fired up. And at that time, they were trying to recruit the Black Muslims here in Long Beach. So I knew several guys was in that. But then, I got married right in 63 out of state. So my time was kind of starting to raise a family. And then I was employed at the Naval Shipyard with the Navy. And they sent me to a school in 69, I think it was, no, in 71. It was up at Mare Island. So I had an opportunity to see some Panthers, in Oakland, because I spent like 9 months going to school up there. So, but my most times, like the Medgar Evers assassination and then the Emmett Till, is kind of fighting for that through the NAACP. So my whole part of my struggle has just been a lifetime member of the NAACP, and I'm kind of doing things with them now. But I'm kind of full-time caregiver for my wife, so that kind of prevents me from really going and getting around. So I've kind of slowed down because my daughter and them's here now because think I had a birthday yesterday, turned 87, so that.
Oh man,
up
congratulations,
a little
brother.
bit.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Happy birthday.
birthday. Happy birthday. All right. Ernest.
Like Dr. Allen says, you know, and my dad had always said that, to say this is going to be a lifetime struggle, and even your kids are probably going to be fighting it. And that's exactly what's going on, you know. So as soon as we catch on the one trick, they invent another one, you know. So
That's good, Ernest. And we're gonna feature your father
yeah, I think
legacy on one of our shows soon.
Invited to some places because the National Council of Negro Women was giving a program Saturday at the Salvation Army on Alamedas, and they wanted me to give a little presentation on it. But I said, well, I'll be happy to, because as I learned, you know, like I retired in 1997 because the shipyard closed. And then I had a lot of time to spend with my dad then, you know, asking him about things in the days, and he spoke highly of Dr. Rahh. He, you know, and a lot of people's names I can remember. And he would really tell me a lot of his strategies and things that he would use. And I think one thing when I got drafted in the Army, they sent me to White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, you know, as a radar technician. So I was on the job about a month and a half, and they called me in and pulled my security clearance. And I said, well, and so I couldn't do nothing without that clearance. So I said, well, why are you doing that? So they refused to tell me. So I went, so okay. So I went back to the barracks, and I made, at that time, Dr. Stevenson was the head of the Armed Forces Committee. Claire Engel was. And so I made a collect call to Washington, D.C. to his office. And I told him, this is Private McBride calling from, and they accepted the call. And I explained to his secretary, hey, they pulled my clearance and they aren't telling me why. And I want to know. And he said, well, I'll find out. And sure enough, they called me about 3 days later, and he said, yeah, they're doing a security investigation on you. And says one thing we can't put our noses in is security matters. So you have to just wait until the investigation's over, but they have to call you in and explain to you in detail what they did. So like 9 months later, I find out, I come in there to ask the questions, and they say, well, you can just answer them outright, you know, not under oath, or you could answer them under Article 31, you know, don't discriminate against you, or you can answer them under oath. I said, well, I'll answer it under oath. And they had the little good cop, bad cop scenario they tried to play on me. I said, look, I don't have to answer any of your questions because I can get on. This was in El Paso, Texas, at Fort Bliss. I said, I can get on the bus, go back to White Sands, and not say nothing. Any of you go, no, we don't want you to do that, beg, you know, don't get mad at us. So anyway, what it was all about, they was asking me, they wanted to know if NAACP was a communist organization. That's what the whole thing was about. And then after the guys got done, they said, well, come in. That was on a Saturday. I want you to come in Sunday morning, sleep in the chief's quarters at night, and come back in tomorrow morning. And they had this guy, Mr. Anderson, lie detector technician. So he says, well, they don't believe you, Ernest. Say, but we're going to ask you a bunch of questions. So they ask a question, and they come down to the question, do you have any communists ever been in your home? Nope. You know any communists? I said, no. They said, have you ever seen any communists literature thing? And I said, nope. And then they asked me, have you ever seen a Daily People's Worker, communist newspaper? I said, nope. So when the guy got done, he said, Ernest, I can tell you now, they don't believe you. They didn't believe you, but you tell them the truth. Say, but one question bothers you in this Daily People's Worker. And he says, anything about that you can remember? And I thought for a few minutes, and then I remembered a friend of mine, they had a Long Beach Daily News, which is a newspaper, and the Long Beach Mirror and the Press Telegram at that time. And so he said, well, what about that? I said, well, I know I was supposed to make like $10 or $12 a month, but I never made more than $2 or $3 because most of the time the people wouldn't pay me when I went by there, and then you had to pay the newspaper guy before you got your cut. So I worked that for like 8 months and never made but $2 or $3. So anyway, I got my clearance back and went back out on the job. And so that's what that was all about, because they were trying to, that was right after McCarthyism and all that, the 50s.
Okay.
Trying to taint the NAACP. But my dad and them, they did everything they could, even when they fought and did picket lines, they did it under the guise of an anti-discrimination committee because they wanted to protect the NAACP. So
okay,
kind of my experiences.
Well, listen, man, like I said, we're gonna have a tribute to your father on our program. And first of all, let me just bring this to a closure right quick, because it's late. I know Rose, Dr. Allen, and Bob, and Bobby Johnson, Robert Johnson. He has a lot to do. He writes all day and all night, and he's in a bunch of programs. And tell us about that program you're going to be having, Dr. Robert, at Cal State Dominguez. You were saying you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, we're planning to do a seminar on the crack epidemic, especially in particular how it affected the city of Compton and the institutions in particular. So we're having people who represent the different institutions, from foster care to medical to law enforcement to education. How did the crack epidemic affect all of these different institutions? Of course, we start in the beginning. We start with how this takes place. We talk about Ronald Reagan's foreign policy in South America. Why the why? How does it get distributed? Especially, why was Compton so hard hit? We talk about Eduardo Blandón, who was a financier for the Contras, and how he actually looked at the structure of street gangs and realized that they were organized down to the block level. In his mind, it was a perfect drug distribution network. And that's why, when cheap cocaine came through the community, it came through so quickly. But we talk about the involvement of the federal government, how it affected the local institutions, how it affected the local people. We'll have people tell their own stories. But what we're trying to do is have, people have internalized the whole crack epidemic. It's the fault of their parents or themselves, or some sort of moral failure, when in fact, they don't understand how the federal government was involved. How the environment was set. Okay, that these things weren't by accident. And then we talk about the aftermath, everything from mass incarceration to the disillusionment of a solid black belt of voters from downtown Los Angeles all the way to Carson. So we had a changing demographic, because at the same time, Reagan's policies in South America, dealing with death squads and supporting dictators, brought people who were escaping those things to to communities where people were trying to actually get out of the community because it had turned into war zones. So that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're putting together for Cal State Dominguez Hills later this year. That'll be in November. You'll hear more about that. Like I said, Rob, we're supposed to get together and grab a bite so we can talk about how you looked at things from especially as a city council person in the city of Compton.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. Me and you gonna stay in contact. We always do.
But I just got to say this real quick. I know you're probably short on time, but when I first met Amin Rahh back in the day when he was still sleeping, I was like, I had just gotten up to campus. There was a Black History Week. We weren't even a month. And Upward Bound, EOP, wanted to do something because Black Student Union really hadn't been functioning. So they had set us up in front of the Humanities Building. And for some reason, I decided I was going to do a little spoken word with the last poets. So I decided to choose this poem, "A White Man Has a God Complex." And I'm still, I just popped up at the school and everything, and I'm standing there. I have a podium. There's some steps. There's a crowd of folks, and here I am. I was actually really getting into it. It was because I always liked the last poets. White Man's Got a God Complex. And I noticed it must have been about five or between 5 and 10 of these white kids. They start moving towards the front, and they don't look happy at all. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching the crowd, and it's not really looking really good. And I'm looking for like allies. Let me see some people I know, because these guys look like they were fixing to rush me. So, I'd been on probation for assault. So I didn't want anything to happen where I'd end up having to go, to jail. But I didn't see any other way out. So I was figuring, when am I going to throw this podium at them and run? Or just what was I going to do? And all of a sudden, just as they're about to come rush the podium where I'm at, because I was right there coming at me, all of a sudden they just froze. They just stopped, and they were like looking up. But I thought they were looking at me, but they were looking just over my head, because behind me, who had walked up the steps in his little derby hat, his black leather coat, was Amin Rahh. I didn't know him at the time, but I was so very happy to see him. But that's how we first met. Okay. Because, like I said, I was being rushed, and he showed up right on time.
Good.
Okay, so I just had to throw that in there. That was my first meeting.
Okay, let me just say this to y'all. First of all, thank y'all for coming on and sharing your experiences and your histories and what you're doing right now. And it's just a beautiful thing that know that I've had an opportunity to share with you in your lives and things. That's me at Santa Monica College. I was speaking on something I can't remember. Santa Monica Community College. I can't even remember the two brothers. They were being my security. But let me just say this to you. One of the most challenging things is to stay active. You have to choose to do that. It's not easy to maintain your Black consciousness once you leave the environment. Sometimes it's like a fish. Once you get them out of the water and you put them on the deck, they'll keep flapping until they get back into the water, and that's America. I want to thank y'all for doing things and trying to help people and help your families and help yourself. This program is your program every Tuesday. If you have an issue or something like that, y'all should have my number. If you don't, you can get it. And if you see a project that we need to put on the air to educate our people, education is the foundation of activism. That's why many of you came to Cal State Long Beach and you got active once you got there. I had the luxury of growing up I was born in Oakland, 1948, but grew up in Watson, Compton. I remember a lot of street gangs, the Baby Orientals, the Baby Huns. I was in and we turned activists in the 60s. The Orientals, the Baby Orientals, all that, the Bells, the Condor, and Mona Park, all of that. And so, we were just street kids, just straight out street fighting, and we fought and we got chased. But the Black movement came, and almost all your Black organizations from across the country, the Blackstone Rangers turned into the Rookins. The Panthers were ex-Street Brothers and gang members, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, them. They came from that, from being harassed by the police. And remember, it was Black Panther Party defense. Well, I forget how it go, but they were more about defense of their communities and looking after their communities. But getting back to what we're doing here, we every Monday and Wednesday, we try to educate our people because we know that education is one tool and one weapon that we can use to change things around. All of our homes must become training grounds for future leadership. We can't do like our parents. I like the way Dr. Allen's son is in law school and graduating, and many of your children, but bless them with the word service and activism. Now, they don't have to go out and call white people names and, get and participate in things that they think are illegal or problematic for them, but they can write books like Dr. Johnson and The History of Compton and other issues that he writes about, and get into programs and projects. We have to keep the struggle going. We have to rebuild the Black movement, the Black consciousness movement. The system spends billions of dollars to suppress it. There's more people arguing about the Super Bowl halftime show than arguing about the struggles that we're in as a people. We're still going through racism. All that stuff diverts us, personal grudge and stuff. But the point is that this platform is to give us purpose and direction and learn, like we're learning about building Black brothers or as the Ijau project, which is very important. And then some other people may want to get involved. And we learn about the struggle for Brother Matt Moore and his family. Maybe we can lend some help if you know something, and maybe he can reach out for help. You never know if they may have to need demonstrations or letters or letters to force the congressmen and assemblymen to look into the murder. So this is very crucial. So I'm just saying that this platform is your tool also. And I want to thank Brother Rashaki for doing it. Black studies, we turned it into a weapon. We weaponized it. And it was the students that initiated it. And we got to get that power back and establish other programs. And each of our homes must become Black studies. Like you said, we turned the campus into a Black HBCU. HBCU, Historical Black College and University. We got to turn our homes into that. And I like the way Dr. Allen has a big library in the back of her. I mean, education is crucial. We struggle on different levels with different methods. Everybody ain't going to be going to Sacramento with guns and things of that nature like the Panther Party did. And everybody ain't going to go to demonstrations. But you can struggle in different other ways. And that's what we're trying to do here. So, we're going to continue this during Black History Month. We give praise and deference to Brother Dr. Carter G. Woodson for his book, Miseducation of the Negro. And there are two ways you miseducate. You tell people lies, like American institutions and educational institutions, when it comes to social and philosophical and literature and things of this nature. Technology is technology. And you learn that. It's hard to lie about how to screw a screw in and how to be a robot. But they can lie about their history or deny people. So we can't miseducate our children by not educating them. And you telling your stories is a part of that education. And you talking about what's going on in your various communities and projects. We wouldn't be knowing that there's going to be a serious discussion about the crack epidemic. People don't, and we need to know that. And any way you can help with Dr. Robert. The reason I call him doctor because he's a doctor to me is because that's serious. Why did it come about? Because there are other drugs they're trying to slip into, fentanyl, and the word heroin was used. It meant hero. It was to get people off of morphine, but anyway, what crack, heroin, and angel dust done to our children, done to families. Those are the main drugs and alcohol that make women walk away from their children, make men don't take care of their children. And we got to just educate people. So next week, I'm going to try to give that history of Black studies as an instrument and why we need to recapture that instrument. They changed a lot of the names over to Pan-African studies and multicultural studies in some institutions. But we're going to go through all of that. Brother Rashaki, you want to take us on in?
All right. Thanks, everybody, for attending this evening. Excellent information, excellent history. Love it. All right. Tomorrow, as you can see on the screen, we have attorney Larry Fields coming. He's in St. Louis, and it's employment discrimination. He's a part of a podcast group called The Level Set. And there are two attorneys, one psychologist, and a political columnist. So it's an excellent group and excellent information they provide on a weekly basis also. So thanks for coming.
And tell them, Rashaki, tell them that these programs are on our website.
Yeah, right here. If you want to hear the audios, you go to the podcast section and you have all the audios here.
And YouTube.
And then YouTube, I'll share that also.
I'm also wondering, Ron, I've been just uploading pictures in the chat.
Yes.
And hopefully someone can gather them. I've just been collecting them from everywhere so that they can be in one place.
Okay, good. I got a bunch of pictures I got to upload, but I got to figure out how to make them come out a little clearer because every time I try to send them to Rashaki, they come out a little blurry. But yours came out good. They did. But go ahead, Rashaki.
Yeah, when we get together, Professor Rahh, when we get together, I have some pictures. When I got my papers back from the PDID lawsuit and the FBI, they sent me some surveillance photographs from Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, please.
So I have to share that with you.
Okay. All right. Rashaki.
So here's the YouTube channel. It looks just like the website. All you have to do is go and put in the search engine Community Education Network, and you'll see our logo. And as you can see, we have 520 videos. So we have a lot of things to share and information. All right, so each one teach one in Conscious Corner.
All right.
We're taking our pause.
Let's share Black History Month this week. All right.